What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Wager Alarm MLB live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me, of course, Craig Mish. It's time to get down and dirty with some MLB win totals. And we're starting the American League today. Craig, I got
Hi,
to
how
say,
are you? How are
I
you
was going
doing?
to say, before we even jump into it, how excited are you to be talking about MLB wins totals right now?
This is a lot of fun. Always do these every year with you, Howard, and certainly like talking about them. And I feel like I have a pretty good feel for these. So coming off a Super Bowl that we did very well with the props, but not so great with the pick. I'm very happy to dive into baseball now, and certainly we'll do the American League today. And I believe the National League we've decided on doing that Friday. Did we agree
We're,
on that?
we're doing the National League on Friday. Today's going to be the American League. And man, listen. This coming off of because here's the funny thing is like we're just coming off of the big Mookie Betts trade and the Angels and the Dodgers making deals. Also, now all of a sudden the Angels have Stripling in the rotation. You've got guys like I'm curious as to see if there is going to be any kind of movement. Like we talk about spread movement and the lack of, unless it's a quarterback who's out. So I'm curious as to see if there is any kind of major effect going on with any of these.
Yeah, a lot of it is they look at the WAR of the player, wins above replacement, and so that's kind of how Vegas adjusts them. I don't know that they look at WAR to determine these. Maybe they do, but I know that when a player is traded of a caliber of a Mookie Betts, who could be 4, 5, 6 WAR player, whatever it is, they'll tend to move that up. So the Dodgers did move up, I think, one win in total. The thing that was interesting is I wanted to see if the rest of the National League West had moved down, but that really didn't seem to be all that affected. So. Yeah, I don't think at this stage you're going to see anything more than a win or two, and it just depends on the player. And Betts is a significant player and someone that could add a win or two to the Dodgers schedule. So when we get to Friday night, we'll see where it is at. I believe it did move up one.
Did they pull a win away from the Red Sox?
You know what? No. As of right now, the Red Sox are somewhere between 84 and 86, and a lot of the lines that we're going to go over tonight are courtesy of the Westgate Superbook. So remember, there's different lines on every team's virtually in every casino in Las Vegas and even online. So if your number is off, you certainly can message me at Craig Mish or at Rotobuzz Guy Howard Bender, and we'll go through those. And also I make appearances on VSiN. Usually I do these throughout the spring, and we go over all the teams, and I give my opinions on that as well. But I can also tell you if I think a line is good here as opposed to somewhere else. And that's just part of it, is you're always shopping for lines. It's very hard because unless you can do this legally on FanDuel or DraftKings, depending on where you live, then you're just kind of forced to doing it offshore, which, personally, I have no problem with, but some people do. And then other than that, like earlier this week, we and Howard, we'll talk about it Friday because I think we're at the point where we've done it or we're in on it. We were shopping a line in Vegas, like just trying to get some help for somebody to be able to put this in for us because – you could bet $500 anywhere, but if you want to bet a lot more, then you have to make sure that you get the very best line. And it could be one win or two. And the other thing, too, is especially if you're taking an under or over on a team, also keep in mind that if you're one win short at the end, there's a good chance that you're going to end up winning the bet because you can hedge your bet when you get to that last game of the season. So as an example, if you take a team that let's say to go under 67 wins and they're sitting on 66 or 67, you could take that team to win, especially if they're plus money, which a lot of times a team that's only going to win 66 or 67 games is. And if they're plus 300 on a game, and let's say you went crazy and you bet $5,000 on a win total, and then you go to the last game of the season and you bet $1,000 on that team plus 200, well, at the very least, you've hedged yourself and you've made half of your money back in one way or the other. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. Fortunately, in the last 2 years, I have not had to worry about that. The totals that I've given out have been over before they even started. And out of the 30 teams in baseball, I'll probably only get down seriously on one of them, maybe two. Usually it is only one. But for the purposes of the live stream, and people have asked me on social media, you've seen that, Howard, some people want to get down on more of those. And so out of these, I'll give some leans, I'll give some picks, and then just some passes that I don't know. And so hopefully you'll have some opinions on the ones that I don't have opinions on.
I might, Rabbit. I might. We'll have to wait and see. Just as a reminder to everybody, yeah, Craig usually comes down with one that he really likes. A lot, and I love having that conversation. If you watched last year's live streams, he gave you the Toronto Blue Jays, and said take the under, and that one was so not in doubt, and
Never in doubt.
Like, I mean, it was just once they started selling off pieces of the team. I mean, it was. I mean, that was a nice ticket to finish up with. So
yeah, and we're on a streak here, not with the Blue Jays, but of baseball. What's really interesting is a lot of those teams. What they're doing is some of these teams that have decided that they're not going to compete, like kind of like how Toronto did last year. Is if you remember, the night before the season started, they traded Kevin Pillar. The night before the season, and Kevin Pillar, who by the way got cut by the Giants too for some reason, had a really good year for them and was a 2 or 3 WAR player. And so you got to look for that right before the start of the season. I think that could happen again. And that's the white flag right there. You know, that's basically telling you that that's going to happen. I think that we've identified a team here this year that could do that. And there's also one American League team that we can go through. I don't know if I'm going to get on it, but it's certainly a pretty strong lean from my opinion.
All right. Well, let's get it started then. Let's start with the American League East. Mm-hmm. So far, the list, it looks like right now, Yankees atop with what's the range here for the Yankees? You've got the ranges. I've got I
have all of lines. Yeah, no, I have all of it. Okay, so the Yankees are about 101, 101 and a half. That's about where we're at with them. And so we'll go through this one by one. I'll start off by telling you how many, what their win total is and how many games they won last year, and then Howard and I will break it all down. So last year, the Yankees won 103 games. And of course, their total is 101 and a half. So their big ad this season, in the offseason, of course, was Garrett Cole. No question about that. And they proved that even though I won't usually go for the bottom or the top, I'm usually somewhere in the middle, is that there's always a lot of variance with that. But what the Yankees proved last year, interestingly enough, is that with even all of those injuries that they had, you would have thought if you bet the Yankees under that you won, right? With all of those injuries in April and Stan wasn't playing and Duhar and all of those offensive players that got hurt, Judge, you would have thought, man, this is in the bag. But all of those guys that they brought up played very well. So they'll have to replace Didi Gregorius, of course. That should probably be pretty easy for them. They have a lot of candidates who could end up doing that. The rotation is still pretty good, even without Paxton. Of course, Paxton's now going to be out for 3 or 4 months. But they compiled out of 103 wins, 54 wins last season in the American League East. That was the most of any team in all of baseball within the division. Of course, they beat up on the Blue Jays and they beat up on the Orioles. So the division, Howard, I don't know. I think the division is a little bit better. I think Toronto they're hoping they're a lot better. I think Toronto's a little bit better. I think that Baltimore is probably the same. I don't know that they're much different. We'll talk about them in a minute.
Yeah, they're probably, I'd say the same. I'd go similar.
Same. The Red Sox probably a little bit worse.
Yes, definitely.
And then one team that we never have a clue on, and I'll pass on it when we get to them, but we'll talk about them, is the Rays.
The Rays.
We would never have any idea what's going to happen with the Rays. The Rays are going to win 110 games. They could win 65. It's a very well-run organization, but I really don't feel like I ever have a good feeling on them in both fantasy and reality for the season. So I would lean over. I would never bet a total of 100 for the variance reasons, although the Yankees did prove me wrong last year. But when you have a total so high, you would think that if Garrett Cole got hurt and Aaron Judge got hurt, you're a winner. Again, Yankees proved that wrong last year. But for the purposes of the stream and just kind of giving you an opinion and a lean, Howard, I would lean over 101.5.
Yeah, I lean over on that as well because, yeah, you're right. They lost Severino. They lost Judge early on. They lost Stanton. It
didn't even matter. It was weird.
It was fantastic. You know, from a Yankees fan standpoint, it was great to see. From a wagering standpoint, yeah, it should have made you happy as a clam if you ended up with the under, if you went for the under, but
it didn't. And they went way over.
Right, and so now I look at this and I say, okay, we're re-adding Severino. You've got Garrett Cole in there. Losing Paxton doesn't kill me that much. They've got a number of guys. They got a couple of guys that can compete for that spot in the rotation. So yeah, I like it. I can't imagine that they would get so decimated with injuries again. I'll knock wood on that.
You wouldn't think so.
I can't imagine 2 years in a row just getting destroyed like that. So
no, but even if they do, they have Talkman and they have Urshela and they have all these guys who they seem to be able to bring in and do well. And let's be honest with Paxton. This is not a reality and fantasy question. This is just hard facts. Paxton's a 5-inning pitcher, all right?
Yeah.
So with the way that baseball is, the Yankees bullpen is still very good. They didn't have Betances all of last year. I don't know. I don't think that. I think losing Paxton is significant, but to the point where it's going to create a win total loss of 2 or 3 wins. No, not gonna say that.
No, I'm with you on that one there. All right, moving on from them. Let's do the Red Sox here. 86.5 is the range. Now, obviously, they've traded Mookie Betts. Where are you? Do you have a lean on this one?
Yeah, probably I would lean toward the under, and even though that's the way that this is going to head, and I'm sure it's going to go down, they still won 84 games last season. So the only thing that I would be worried about with taking the over on the Red Sox would be what will be their plan in July. This is an interesting team because if the Rays are really good and the Red Sox fall far behind, I don't see a ton of candidates, Howard, for them to trade. Like, I don't see them trading JD Martinez. I don't see them trading Xander Bogaerts, and they definitely will not trade Devers. But some, like, extra pieces, I could see Jackie Bradley. I could see the Red Sox moving guys on the 31st. Would some team be interested in Eduardo Rodriguez? He had a good year last year, and so that would worry me a little what the last 2 months of the season would look like. Last year, also, they feasted on the American League Central. They went 21-11 against that division. And we also know this year that you would expect that the Central's got to be good with the Twins and the Indians and the White Sox. The Royals should probably be a little bit better. The Tigers, of course, will not be. So I would lean toward the under here. It just seems like the right play. Okay.
Now, the Rays, they've got around 89.5. Last year, they won 96 games. 96. And how is 96, So I ask you here, like, how do you go from 96 wins to Vegas turning around saying 89.5?
It happens with them. There's a couple of other teams that we'll go over too. That also Oakland's another team that Vegas never believes in. There's some others that just do things differently, and they expect that shoe to drop because with the Rays having these totals once every few years, things are just going to completely fall apart. And remember, they're always in that danger zone, Howard, of trading everybody. They don't care. Right. They'll get to the deadline. They'll just be like, all right, forget it. We have no chance. I don't think that's going to happen. So how do we quantify this? The moves that they made in the offseason, again, they're always shuffling the deck. Tsutsugo, the outfielder that they got from Asia. Hunter Renfroe, they basically swap him out for Tommy Pham. They had Jose Martinez, too. I don't look at any of these players as sort of impact players that's going to change things one way or the other. This is always a really hard team to read for me here, and I don't feel like I'm ever getting them right. Their total is 89.5. I don't really even have a lean here. I got to tell you, if I had to guess, I would guess that they'll be over. But would it shock me if they won 86 games? No, it wouldn't. Starting pitching is really good. They're going to use Yarbrough as the opener every fourth time through, it looks like. Their bullpen is as good or better than any teams in Major League Baseball. It's fantastic. So they just want to get 5-6 innings out of their guys. From Charlie Morton, they'll probably baby him early on in the season, too. Snell will come back. Look, it's a really good team. But it's like if you close your eyes and dream, and I told you the Rays won 87 games, and you bet the over, you would be like, why did I do that? Like, they're still a good team, but they're just not as good as last year. So I'm going to pass on this one.
All right, I'm with you on that, definitely. Let's go to the Blue Jays. 76 is the mark right now. They won 67, but here it is, man. Those baby Jays right now between Vlad Jr., Cavan Biggio. Who's
Bo Bichette?
Bo Bichette. I was with the flowing hair, that guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, the baby Jays right now, that's it's a significant improvement that they're putting on it. The problem that I have with leaning either way on this is the pitching and the home ballpark. It's like the Rockies to me will never win a World Series because they never have home field advantage because everybody hits there. And I feel like it's kind of the same situation here with the Jays lately, especially in this era of, ridiculous power that the Rogers Center just plays like the Coors Field East. And so I kind of, I definitely want to shy away from this.
Yeah, I don't see them as 10 wins better than last year. I don't see it. I don't know that Ryu makes them 10 wins better. I don't know that Tanner Roark makes them 10 wins better.
Oh, but Chase Anderson.
with, with all of those kids that they had, they finished 12-8 down the stretch. That was the best stretch they had of any baseball over the season. 12-8 in their last 20. So, they called up Guerrero last year, as you mentioned, Bichette and Biggio. That helped them a little bit, but no more reinforcements beyond that in the minor leagues. So those guys are playing in the majors at this point. Strange record in interleague that is in their favor potentially to go over. They went 3-17, so that's unlikely to happen again this year. You know how baseball works; things usually normalize with that. But when I look at Toronto, that's another team that I say, if they ended up winning 72, 73 games and improved by 5 or 6 games, would that be horrible for them? No. I think the number is a little too high, so I wouldn't bet the Blue Jays under this year like we did last year, and it was so easy. I would just lean toward the under, but I don't see them as a 500 team. I think they're still a couple of years away, and honestly, I don't like the signings that they had with their starting pitching. It feels a little bit desperate. I understand it because they're playing in a market and in a city where they love the Blue Jays, and they almost can never go in a rebuild, but if I was them, I probably would have taken another year and gone back on the market or tried to trade for better starting pitchers. So a lot of people are on Ryu this fantasy season. I don't see it. I don't know that it's going to work. He really put his career together over a course of 1 full year and a half. I mean, maybe he's able to get it done with them, but I'll lean under 76.5.
Yeah, I don't think Ryu is going to be the guy for them either. I mean, not with a declining ground ball rate. And then moving into this park. I mean, pitching in Dodger Stadium versus pitching in the Rogers Center. Please,
facing the Yankees and then facing the Orioles in Camden Yards. Even though that they can't pitch, the Orioles can hit. We'll get to them next.
Well, let's get to them right now then, because they were a 54-win team last season. 56.5 is the number I'm looking at here, but I don't know, man. You look at I don't look at the Orioles and say that this is a team that improved itself in the offseason to the point where they could lose the same amount. Maybe they could win a game or two more. But,
and that's the key. You just said it. That's the key. You're not going to bet this. I mean, why would you even mess around with a 56.5? Like a few things go right in April and September for the Orioles, and they're going over the total, and it's no indication whatsoever as to whether or not they were a good team. 54 wins last season, 56.5 is the total. They subtracted their best player in Jonathan Villar. They gave him away to Miami. Villar helps them win games, Howard, and the Orioles are, I hate to say it, they're really not trying to win. They want to get that first pick. Spencer Torkelson from Arizona State's probably going to be the first pick overall, and the Tigers and Orioles are going to be trying to continue to chase down picks after this year and next year. So I still think that they're in that Adley Rutschman, Torkelson position. They're trying to build 3 or 4 players like the Astros did. Remember, their general manager, I think he's doing a great job, and Mike Elias, that's what he's trying to do. Next 4 or 5 years, build this thing like the Astros built it. So they added Iglesias. That gives them a better defense. Their defense was pretty poor last year, so they're trying to protect their young pitchers a little bit. John Means is at the top of the staff. Really good first half, all-star. Second half, not as good. Renato Nunez, I don't know where he came from last year. He had 30 home runs. They don't even have him penciled in as a starter this year. Trey Mancini, clearly a great player. He's their all-star. Will they keep Mancini after July? Is he part of the plan? He'll be a free agent in a couple of years, too. So the reason why I'm going to go over here a little bit on a lean is there's one stat that I look at, and I look at every single team. And you guys can do this at home, too. I'm not telling you anything, and there's no secret to it. But one of the key elements that I look at, if it makes a difference, and on Friday night, you'll see really one of the main reasons why my favorite one pertains to Friday night. But the Orioles were 11, 22, and 1. I'm sorry, I had 1. There's no ties. 11 and 22 in one-run games last season. Okay? Now, that stat is the most normalizing stat in baseball. It just doesn't happen 2 years in a row. If you're awful in one-run games one year, it's zero indication as to how you're going to be the next year. It just is. That thing evens out. Now, I'm not saying the Orioles are going to be 22 and 11, but that's going to give them 3 or 4 more wins. That's like blown saves in the 9th inning, Howard. You know how bullpens are. 1 year the closer's good. 1 year the closer's not good. The Orioles will be better than 11 and 22 in one-run games, and that could potentially push them over that total. So it doesn't give them 65 wins, but it could give them 57 or 58 or 60. And so my lean will be slightly on the over here, but again, the bottom and the top, I usually stay away.
All right. Well, there you go. That's a wrap on the AL East. Let's move to the Central. You know what? I want to start with the Twins. I got to start with the
Okay.
Twins. 101 wins last year. They are very much in a win now
Absolutely.
mentality. Last year they led the league in home runs. They make a deal in the involved in this Mookie Betts deal where they go from Gratterall, who's great young prospect and high upside, but probably profiles more as a reliever at this point in time, and they add Kenta Maeda to this rotation. So solid movement there. They add Josh Donaldson. They moved Miguel Sano over to first base. So, I mean, this team is built for a good, strong power, and I like the rotation. And Taylor Rogers, believe it or not, I mean, I don't usually like lefty closers, but Taylor Rogers kind of gets that job done.
Yep, they have Romo also. So they won 101 games last season. I don't see that happening again. That was a big number. They broke the record for home runs. Their total is 91.5. I think this is a great number. I think this is right around where they're going to be. I think they got to come back a little bit from last year. I still don't love their pitching. Maeda was a desperate move, Howard. They were really in a position where Barrios, Odorizzi, yeah, I mean, they're kind of twos, two-starter, Odorizzi, three-starter, four-starter. And then they add Homer Bailey and they add Rich Hill. I know that they were in discussions with other teams to try and get starting pitching. And I feel like this was like, we got to do something here to make sure we stabilize this rotation. Because while their bullpen is good in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, they still don't really have a great bridge, I don't feel like, to get there. So what happened for them last year to get to 101 is they did something that teams usually don't do. They won more road games than any team in baseball. 55 road wins on the season. That was the most in the league. So that's got to come down a little bit. It's not going to happen again. So I don't think they win 100 games. Also, as I mentioned, very big outlier again, one-run games. Here we go, 23-12 in one-run games last year. That's got to come back to earth a little bit. White Sox are also a little bit better. I think the number is just really good. I think it's spot on. I think they're somewhere between 90 and 94 wins, which is probably good enough to win the division. And if not, it's probably good enough to win the wild card too. So I think they're probably headed to the postseason, but the number is good, and I'm going to pass.
You're going to pass. All right. Let's go to Cleveland then. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a huge Rocco Baldelli fan because I got to talk to him.
He came on the show?
And he came on the show. I got all crazy about it, but he's also a huge fish guy too.
Right.
So we had that nice little bond there, and now we're best friends. And so, so the Twins are going to win 120 games because of that.
Right. I mean, again, if the Twins won 89 games, that's a great year for them. There's a chance they win the division off that. The division's going to be.
Are they going to win the division with 89 wins?
The division's going to be better. I mean, unless you think the White Sox are going to be horrible, then yes.
I don't think the White Sox are going to be horrible. The Royals are going to be terrible. The Tigers are going to be awful.
Right.
Okay, so now you've got. I mean,
listen. Maybe you like the Twins over at 91.5. It's fine. Take it.
I kind of do.
All right, so go with it.
I'm going to lean. I'm going to lean.
Lean back. All right. Where are we at, Cleveland?
Cleveland Indians, 93 wins last year. Now we're looking at them with the number of what? 85.5.
Why? Why is this number so much lower?
Why is this number so much lower?
I don't know. I think this is an over.
I think this is an over too. I mean, if you look at
so low, what happened?
Because they don't really have. They're not really built for a whole mess of power. Maybe. Like I mean, that's you look at it. You got Franmil Reyes and Carlos Santana as their bigger boppers. Jose Ramirez needs to come out strong with a really strong first half this year. Right. He needs to have a more balanced season.
Right. And Lindor didn't play the first couple weeks of the season. Ramirez was a shell April, May, and June. Right.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Right.
Okay. So now you got
now pitching.
Well, pitching, yeah, here's the thing. Clevenger, Bieber, Carrasco, nice, healthy Carrasco. Savali, I'm a big fan of as well. Listen, I like it. I definitely like it. What I'm saying is this, you're asking why I think it's low. I think it's low because they're not built for power hitting.
Yeah, their hitting isn't as good, but their pitching is really good. And, the counter that for people who are watching, someone's probably saying, but they traded Corey Kluber. Kluber missed half the year.
Yeah.
I mean, Kluber missed half the year. Oh, but Clevenger didn't pitch last year, It's like those guys are pitching. Carrasco didn't pitch last year. So if you're counting on all of those guys being injured, then, yeah, I mean, certainly there's a chance this goes under 93, but I don't think so. I don't think they're 7.5 games worse than last year. So the other part of this, too, is that you have to pay attention to the last few games of the season. Remember, Cleveland was eliminated with a few games to go, so they didn't care. They lost 5 games in a row to end the season in meaningless games. 5 games in a row. They still won 93. So the division is better, but they seem like an 88-win team to me. I think they could possibly go over that, so I'll lean for sure toward the over on the Tribe. Yeah, and a team, by the way, that at the deadline, if they're close, they're going to have to add something. You know, this is it. I think Lindor's going to get moved in the offseason. I don't think they'll move him at the deadline. So, you know, that there's a danger zone for that for sure too. I don't want to dismiss that. But again, to use the idea that Kluber is gone and Clevenger, I mean, those guys weren't really a big part of that team last year, and Bieber was clearly, and they still found a way to win that many games. So I just don't see why that this number is so low. I think the Indians are better than the Red Sox. Their numbers should not be similar. I think the Indians are better.
Okay, all right. You want to lean that way? You want to lean that way?
I'm leaning on that one.
All right. Well, let's go White Sox now. 84.5 is the number. They won 72, but this is a team that definitely made as many improvements as they could during the offseason. And their youngsters now getting a little bit better when you're looking at kids like Moncada, Tim Anderson, and what they've got, Eloy Jimenez. So, I mean, it's young, but I mean, this team has power. This team has speed. Giolito really took a step forward. I'm not a huge Dallas Keuchel fan. I think the problem here is in the rotation. I like the position players. I like the offense they'll be able to put up. It's a hitter's ballpark. It's the pitching staff that I worry about.
Yeah, and again, 72 wins last year. Their total is 84.5. It's not that it can't happen. It feels unlikely that the team is, to me, 13 wins better than they were last year. It feels like in 2 years we could be talking about a team that has a chance to win the division and maybe even win the American League and even the World Series. But this reminds me a little bit of last year's Phillies to a degree, where the Phillies made all these additions and what did it add up to, like a mid-80s type team. And you're right. I mean, think about it. For them to get to 85 wins, here's what has to happen. Giolito's got to be the guy he was last year, right? He's got to be that good or better.
Has to be in order to go the over.
Kopech's got to be good. Mm-hmm. Reynaldo Lopez has got to be good. Let's assume Keuchel is who he is. Dylan Cease has to be good too. All of these pitchers have to be good for them to get there. Yeah, I mean, they added Grandal. We're counting on a rookie, Luis Robert. I mean, maybe he's great. Maybe he's not. We don't know. Eloy Jimenez, can he build off last year? We don't know what a guy's going to be. And there's just too many ifs for me here. So I think the White Sox are probably close to 500. I think they probably win 80 games. If they win 80 games, that's an 8-game improvement over last year. That's very significant. And I don't see this team winning 90. Like, I don't think they're there yet. I think they're a year away from that. And another team that I would be concerned if they fell out at the deadline to move any of those veterans that they have, because I think they'll be prepared. Not the guys they just signed, clearly.
No, but like Jose Abreu, they would move. They could move Carlos Santana for sure. Not Carlos Santana. Carrasco.
No. We're totally off here.
Encarnacion.
A lot of guys on 1-year deals. They're kind of they made a lot of moves, but they're not all in. I don't think. I think they like dipped their toe in, and I think that you're going to be hearing a lot of toward the end of the year. Oh well, our goal is to have a 500 season because we haven't been 500 in 5 years. So I'll lean toward the under with the White Sox. That may not be a popular pick for people, but usually when you just add all these pieces, it doesn't usually add up to a great team. It's usually the second year where that happens. So okay. I'll go under.
All right. I like the under on that one as well. Let's go to Detroit. Well, here we go. Last year, Detroit, 47 wins.
47 wins in a season.
That's amazing, right?
When you see that number, isn't it staggering to think that?
It really is. And when you sit there and you look at their number now, it being at 67, you're
20 wins better?
How in the world? Like, what did, aside from, I mean, unless they think that addition by subtraction and getting rid of Nick Castellanos is the solution to gaining 20 wins, I don't understand I don't understand this number based on what they did last year. So,
Right.
I mean, I know you don't like to pick the extremes, but I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is they play Kansas City a lot, Howard, and so that's a big part of the equation here. And by the way, 66, 65 in some other places. I agree with you. I don't think they're 20 wins better. The issue, if you're going to bet the under with the Tigers, is unlike some of these other teams that we're talking about at the bottom, they added 2 major league players. Now, probably 2 major league players that they're going to trade in July. I get that. Mm-hmm. But we're only talking about winning in the mid-60s here or high 60s. They added Jonathan Scope. He's a good player. He's going to hit 20 home runs for Detroit. C.J. Cron is going to hit 25 home runs. And if Miguel Cabrera is DH and hits 25 home runs, all of a sudden it's like not – listen, it's not that – it could be better than Baltimore. It could be better.
Cabrera popping 25 home runs?
It could happen. Listen.
In what world?
It could be – they could be better than Kansas City. They could be better than Baltimore. It is possible. Their frontline starter in Boyd, arguably better than anybody Kansas City has, better than anybody Baltimore has too. Jimenez could do a good job in the ninth. Look, I'm in agreement with you. I don't think they'll be 20 games better. I would definitely lean toward the under without a doubt. But they did add major league players, and Baltimore really did not. And Pittsburgh really did not.
But I'm not worried about them against like Baltimore or against Pittsburgh. I mean, if you're looking at them just for the division right now, yeah, fine. Vegas has Kansas City with a lower wins total. Let's say that the Tigers, what do they go, I don't know, 15-4 against the Royals. You're telling me that this club is going to still be able to hang with the White Sox, hang with the Indians, hang with the Twins?
Well, if they go 15-4, all they got to go is like 43-100 against the rest of the league. Really, that's the problem.
They won 47 games last year.
I know. All
right, well, let's hit Kansas City then, because I'm leaning on the under for Detroit as well.
Of course.
I just
you can't go over. I mean, it's under or nothing. So the Royals won 59 games last season, and, Mike Matheny's their manager, so... I'm not really sure what to make of that. They had a lot of
Ned Yost. That's a good thing.
They had what a World Series then. A lot of games versus Detroit. White Sox are better for sure. What did the Royals do in the offseason?
Michael Franco.
That's it. That's all they did, Howard. That's all they did. So starting pitching, honestly, it's worse than Detroit. It's pretty bad, man. Like it's not a good starting 5. It is not a good bullpen. They'll trade Kennedy the second they can. So on this one, too, you're essentially them beating up on Detroit. That's what you're counting on here, like to go over. That's what you're counting on. So I'll lean under on them, too, under 64.5. Yeah. I mean, another team trying to get draft pick capital, trying to, kind of reset their franchise. They'll trade Gordon at some point. They have 2 dynamic players, right? They have Merrifield and Mondesi and the danger zone there for that, too. Would it shock you to see them trade either one of those guys in July, too? No. So can't get involved in this one.
No, and I'm happy to not get involved with this one either. I'll agree on the lean on the under, but I wouldn't. Man, the Royals and the Tigers, so bad. Right. Let's go to the West. Let's go to them cheating Astros. I mean, the Houston Astros. The Houston Asterisks, 93.5 is the number Vegas is giving me. 107 is how many games they won last year.
Yeah. So what do you think, Howard? I don't know. Like, do you think that everything is just going to come completely crashing down this year? Because that's the total that we have. We're looking at 93.5 is a pretty big crash.
That is a big crash, but no, I don't think that we're going to see that big of a crash.
I don't think so either. I think they win more than this. I think they win in the 90s. I think that this is a pretty big overreaction. I think that Vegas is probably taking a lot of underbets on the Astros, and so they got to make that adjustment. Look, they still have a lot of great players. Alvarez, potentially Kyle Tucker. Dusty Baker has shown that while he's not winning you a World Series, or he hasn't, he's still getting you division titles. So I'm still would lean toward the over on Houston. I'm not off them by any means. You have Springer, who's playing for a lot. You have a lot of players who now are going to be trying to prove that what they did last year was no fluke. It is a little troublesome that you remove Garrett Cole, and you add nothing. I mean that's kind of part of it. Like Urquidy, a lot of people are very high on him. I don't know what for. I've seen him pitch 3 years now in the minor leagues. Look, I guess have fun with that guy. I don't know. He could be okay, but
no, listen, I think that this is still a really strong offense. I'm not a huge Maldonado fan behind the plate, but
defender.
Yeah, he's a defender. But when you look at it and you think about it, listen, the Astros knew what was going on, and even in the midst of the whole scandal, they still gave George Springer a 3-year extension. If this was all based on cheating and banging garbage cans, would they have really extended Springer by another 3 years and given him that kind of money? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, look, they're pitching. Losing Garrett Cole is not going to be as good. It's clear cut. But you got Zach Greinke, so provided that Greinke is kind of who he's been, then I think that he is the key figure in this conversation, because you assume Verlander is still Verlander. And then beyond that, your 2 is Greinke. As long as he is okay, I think they can, piece the rest of it together. Lance McCullers will come back. He'll probably throw 100 innings this year. He's been effective when he's been healthy. I know it's a big win. They can move Peacock inside and out of the rotation. And again, Urquidy is like the hot name. Everybody really likes him a lot. So I'm not 100% sold on him, and I'm there a lot in the spring. And wasn't really a guy that a lot of people talked about to me over the last couple of years. But maybe based on what we saw, he's able to take that next step.
We'll have to wait and see. All right, so we're leaning on the over here for 93.5.
Yes,
not a problem there. Next team, let's do the A's. Last year, 97 wins for them. This year, the number is sitting at 89. This is a team that you said. Well, you said Vegas doesn't like this team, right?
They do not, and it's a similar situation to the Rays, and it's why I pass, because it would not shock you to see Oakland win 70, and it would not shock you to see them win 100. I mean, that there is so much variance with that team, and once every 3 or 4 years they bottom out and they build it back up. Then they're good a few years, then they bottom out again. It's a very bizarre way of doing business. Like guys like Mark Canha all of a sudden are coming into their own in this part of their career. They're finding these pitchers. They start using openers all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you've got guys like Luzardo, Frankie Montas, who
very
everybody
young
expects
pitchers.
to take another step forward. So yeah, listen, I can understand why there is that much variance. I
feel like there's so much there, and I don't want to get involved with Oakland because I feel like if you go under and they go over by a lot, you're just saying to yourself, I really didn't have a good feel for it. So look, they clearly have the hitting. They have as good hitting in that division as anybody, no doubt about it. Olson's a really good hitter. Chapman, really good hitter, really good defender. They're always able to piece things together. But again, you get into a situation with Oakland, it's July 31st, it's Billy Beane, you're sub 500, and then boom, there goes this guy.
Everybody's dealt. Everybody.
And we've seen that in the past. So, and by the way, I want to mention Simeon too. He has really become a great player in the league as well.
Sure, absolutely, 100%. Always underrated in the fantasy realm.
Very underrated. Yep.
When we're talking about this, I agree with you. When you look at a team that is so capable of just turning around and saying, you know what, we're not going to compete, and they sell everybody off, it's not inspiring me to stick with them. So I like the no pick here on the A's. Moves me over to the Angels, 86.5.
Interesting one.
See, this one's an interesting one. 72 wins last year. They add Rendon. You're hoping that you've got a healthy Trout. You hope you've got now a full year of Ohtani.
Right. Jock Peterson.
Jock Peterson is now in there and likely to hit leadoff for them. You still have Justin Upton over there.
Ross Stripling was a nice move.
And now you look at Stripling's joining. Who is it? Griffin Canning is over there. Andrew Heaney is a guy.
This feels like the best shot that the Angels have had to be good. Like this feels like it. Managerial change too. You bring in Joe Madden. There's always that instant win with Joe Madden, and most people feel he is the one of only a handful of managers that immediately gives you a 3 or 4 win boost as the manager. So I would lean over here. I think there's a chance that we're finally going to see Trout in the postseason. I think there's a chance of that. And they are so far all in, Howard, that if they're close, another team that will add, I think. If they're even like a game out, in July, I think you'll see them grab some other pitcher. So they're not selling anybody off. They can't sell anybody off. They're so far down the road here of trying to win now and doing the right thing by Trout. So I would lean over on the Angels. I think this could be it. I think this could be the year, not to win 100 games, but I think
better than 86.5.
Yeah, I think a lot of underachieving, a lot of injuries last year, some kind of strange things happening, and look, I thought Socha was a really good manager for a long time, but people in Los Angeles said that it was really time for him to go. Like the things were just not going in the direction that they wanted it to go. You can't argue with Joe Madden. Maybe in the postseason you can, but in the regular season, this guy's a winner. He's won every single year with Chicago, with Tampa Bay. I mean, I think he's going to win with the Angels too.
I love it. I love it. Music to my ears. I like that. I'm fantasy wise. I'm invested in Angels too.
You should be. I think they have a good team.
I
and
dig this.
getting Peterson and Stripling for
that blew me away for nothing.
And you know what? Stripling, I mean, to me, he's their third best starter right now.
Easily. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm curious to see what kind of innings he's going to be able to throw this year. That's a guy who I'm definitely looking at.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean,
their bullpen is not great. I mean,
but he's just been pulled in and out of, in LA as a spot starter.
The Angels, again, think about it. If the Angels are approaching the deadline or they're in July and they're surfing around 500, you have Joe Madden, you're paying Pujols all this money, you're paying Trout all this money, you're paying Ohtani all this money. The Angels, what they're going to do, they're going to get some bullpen pieces, right? Like they'll do what the Braves did. They'll add Shane Green or Melanson. They'll bring somebody in to have the ninth. I mean, so I don't think it's a huge concern for me. So it would be a lean toward the over. And then this final one here will actually have a pick.
Well, we got two more here.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Don't want to forget those Texas Rangers. Yeah. 78 wins last year. The number that I'm looking at here is 79.5. Come on, man. They just got Corey Kluber. They took all those wins away from Cleveland. And now, they didn't put them on Texas too much. But, again, it's Globe Life Stadium. And what are you going to do with the pitching over there? It always gets crazy in the heat.
The new stadium this year.
Is it a new stadium?
Yes, new park.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
What are the dimensions?
On my radio show, we had Tom Grieve on, the broadcaster, and he said it's going to be more of a pitching friendly park than the other park was. That doesn't mean it's going to be a pitcher's park, but more friendly. So the deal with Texas is this. It's kind of strange. Like they're going into a new park, so that's why they got Corey Kluber, right? But at the point that they got Corey Kluber, everyone felt they were going to end up with Ozuna or they were going to end up with Nick Castellanos, and they were going to keep going.
Right.
And then they stopped. So I don't know that they've done enough to be a team that's in the postseason, but also I think this number is close enough where I think they can come close to reaching it. I think that the Rangers in 2021 are going to try and be a very competitive team. I don't know that I think they're about the same as to what they were last year. You can't tell me who their first baseman is. I mean, it's Ronald Guzman. You can't really endure. I mean, Todd Frazier.
Oh, yeah. They were talking about, I know Danny Santana was a guy who was optioned.
I mean, come on.
They just brought in Greg Bird to sign him on a minor league deal.
Yeah, and I like Ronald Guzman. I'm a fan of his. But, Todd Frazier at third. Howard Odor at second. There's going to be massive strikeouts coming on this team, So I'm just going to pass on this one. And again, not knowing the park, I think that's somewhat of a factor here. I applaud Texas for taking the step of having a really good opening day starter. They needed to do that. You need to support the fan base when you're opening up a new stadium. But I don't see this being enough to make them a postseason team. And so therefore they're surfing around 500 for me. And again, a team that could trade players.
All right. But it's still called Globe Life. How about that? It's Globe Life Field.
Oh, thank you.
That's what they're calling it now. Because I was like, where is it? Everybody says they're playing at Globe Life Field. Globe Life Field instead of Globe Life Park. Now we'll finish it up here, wrap it up with those wonderful Seattle Mariners, a 68-win team last year. 67.5 is the number because, Seattle didn't really do much. There's not a whole hell of a lot that they did, and I got to tell you,
I'm concerned for this team.
I could actually lean on the under on this one just in looking at the team's roster.
Yeah, I'm really concerned, and I think that the future will be bright for them. They have a kid in the minors, Julio Rodriguez, I believe, very young. Probably see him in a couple of years. The issue with Seattle last year is they were on pace to break all kinds of records for committing errors. They had 37 errors in the first 31 games. They were the worst in the league at defensive runs saved. They committed 132 errors on the season. They were so sick of that, Howard. I mean, crazy tired of it. They just got rid of anybody who wasn't playing defense. They don't want to go through it again. So they sacrifice so much offense, I think, with this because Not that anybody's picked up Domingo Santana, but they just like got rid of him. He's gone. D. Gordon, we are just not playing you anymore. And and first base, whoever they had, I don't even remember, Vogelbach, I guess. We are not playing you. So what did they do in the offseason? So they added nothing, and they gave these little contract extensions to younger players that when they think they're going to be good in a couple of years, they wanted to be around. They gave Evan White a contract extension. Evan White is a good defensive player, but he's not a hitter. Shed Long is starting at second, Howard. Kyle Lewis is starting in left field. I'm not sure who their right fielder is. I've never heard of him. Jake Fraley, I guess, is their starting right fielder. They have no pitching. They have no pitching at all. Marco Gonzalez 2 years ago, really good. Last year, not as good. Kikuchi was a big disappointment, but they got to roll him out again. They paid him already. And they have nothing after that.
Dude throws to so much contact. It's ridiculous. I'm trying to figure out who I hate more out of one of my fantasy teams last year. Kikuchi or Dakota Hudson. They were killing me with the contact.
And by the way, for Seattle, this is the right move. The right move for them is to lose 100 games, to lose 110, and try and get the first pick. I mean, I don't know that they're going to go that far down, but it is absolutely the right move, because you look at this division and you're Seattle and you're Jerry DiPoto, and you look up and you see Oakland. You're like, we're not them. You see the Angels. We're not them. You see Houston. We're definitely not them. Could you maybe catch Texas? Yeah, I suppose that there's a chance of that happening, but they are the clear-cut team in this division that is really not trying to win this year, and I don't think that they're going to win a lot of games. I think this could be a 100-loss team, which is the right way for them to go about it. So I will have a pick on this one of under 67.5 wins on Seattle. It's not my favorite one of the entire board, but this is probably my third favorite one between the National League and the American League. And I don't love to do deep dives on the 68s and 67s, but what message is it sending to us if you're starting Evan White at first, Shed Long at second, Kyle Lewis in left, and Jake Fraley in right field?
You're not going to get an argument out of me. All right, if it's a top 3 pick for you among AL and NL, and again, folks, we're going to do the NL on Friday night.
Top 4: Indians over, and Seattle under.
I was just going to ask your two favorite AL picks here are Indians over, Seattle under.
Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm.
I like it.
And then Friday night, you'll have to tune in for the best of them all.
For the best of them. Get my wallet ready, my checkbook's out. Gonna be good to go. So there you have it, guys. That's our American League win total live stream. You've got your picks, you've got your leans, you got our leans at least, and best of luck to you as you continue through. Again, Craig and I will be here on Friday to go over the National League and see if we can't find you a few more.
We will.
Of course we will. We will. All right. Well, then that's going to do it for us. Big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells, the 2019 Racing Writer of the Year. I can announce it now because it's been announced on the air.
Sources indicate.
Sources indicate. So big kudos to my man, Matt Sells, the producer for today's show. Always a pleasure to get a nice little notch in the belt for him. He does amazing work, and maybe we'll get him to do like a little wager alarm NASCAR session here, huh? Think about it. In the meantime, Craig, thank you so much for everything. I'm very much looking forward to Friday's show, and thanks to all you guys for tuning in. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.